Well, I appreciate you for having this conversation with me. I understand that you're an elder in this community, and in a couple of the tribal communities around here, you're well respected. You come from a very strong family, and so having the opportunity to speak to you and getting your knowledge and being able to share that with people is important. Would you like to give yourself an introduction?
An introduction. Well, I can tell you how old I am, my name, and how long I lived in this community. My name is Mel Brooks. I'm 86. I've been living here in the Smith River Rancheria. Now they call it the Dee-ni something or another community for over 50 years. My wife was from here. I'm originally from the Klamath River at the mouth, Requa. Went to Indian school. Didn't graduate from Indian school, but I went back when they had reunions and things. They put a little thing on your chest saying what year you would have graduated. All those people I went back to see, when I went to the reunion, they were elders compared to me. One girl was my age. I didn't remember her and she didn't remember me, which I thought was kind of strange because they're small classes, 30 or less. And we went through three grades together. But basically after that, I went to another Indian school in Pawnee, Oklahoma. Then I went to just regular public school in Eureka. And,
when you say Indian school, do you mean like it's a reservation school, or do you mean like the boarding schools?
Boarding school, primarily, yeah.
The Christian or the Catholic Church boarding schools?
No, a BIA boarding school.
BIA.
Yeah. What they did was they had we was right in the center of it. They had a school in Los Angeles and they had a school in Salem, Oregon. And if you lived in this area from Eureka on up to here, you had a choice. And the same way it was probably from Redding up to the border. You had a choice, either go to a Riverside Indian School or Chemawa Indian School in Salem. And so my dad went to Chemawa Indian School, so we went up there. And that, but I had cousins that went down, my dad's nephews went down to Riverside. So it was a choice. Right here, you had a choice. And they were older than myself. And I don't know why they chose what school they chose, but a couple of them went to the service during the Second World War, and they perished.
So what was it like being in the Indian schools back then? Were you treated badly?
Well, I was a kid. Started first grade in they call a little boys building, Burrell Hall. What they use older boys to manage us, make sure our rooms are, in the morning when you got up, you had to make your bed, go wash up, put on your clothes, sweep, and mop around your bed before you went to breakfast.
Sounds like the military.
Then you went out and did calisthenics for 20 minutes or so. Then you marched to chow. You got in a formation, just kind of, not in the army style, but, walk to chow. And the little guys got to eat first. And the older kids, both women and men, they ate last. The theory being is that they wanted the young people to make sure they had enough food. Because, old people, or older kids, they can be kind of greedy at times. And then whatever was left over, then they got to eat, because a lot of times there'd be a lot of stuff left over. So they just go ahead and chow down on whatever was left over. And we'd barely eat what we got, little kids.
Well, a lot of people, what they hear about from the Indian schools, when you talk about the history, people talk about the women and children that were murdered, that were raped, and how harshly people were treated, and the ethnic cleansings that went on, and cultural cleansing, the whitewashing of the native culture. And so I'm curious what your experience is and perception.
Well, the kids from Requa, where I come from, kids from Requa, and kids from up here, not too many of them spoke their language fluently. And then there was nobody to speak to if they did, because there wasn't that many of them. So down here for us, it was no bother. But for some of the kids up in Washington, where they come from reservations that were more isolated than ours down in Klamath, they might have been treated a little bit different. But when you're a kid, you don't pay attention to that because, like I said, they had older kids monitoring our behavior in dorms and stuff.
Native kids.
And those they were mean. Some of those boys still wet their pants because they didn't want to go in and go potty in the building. So what they'd do is they just keep on playing and wet their pants. Well, if one of those older boys seen him do that, or seen the results, in his pants, he'd take that boy and tie his pants around his neck with a piss part showing in
Oh my
his
God.
face. And you can see that was cruel and mean, but there's, the direction wasn't that good from, her name was Mrs. Toady. I don't remember what her first name was, in Little Boys Building when I was there. And she let them do whatever they wanted to do to us kids. Because then at least it had some kind of continuum of her arm reaching down and say, okay, you can't do that. So they was her, when she couldn't be there for all of us kids outside playing.
And she was native, or she was a...
Yeah, she was native from Oklahoma. And actually, she wasn't a bad lady, but she didn't have any assistants or anything. So they had that's what, it was customary. And I don't know how that all worked in the Bureau pay scale when they come to, seemed like they'd have 2 or 3 people just to monitor us little guys.
Mm-hmm.
And
so the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the BIA, who established these Indian schools, they would basically appoint natives to run the schools, and then they would create some type of structure for the students based off of age to basically manage themselves. Or did they send down a director from the Bureau of Indian Affairs that was a non-native to oversee the schools?
I can't remember that because I was too young, I guess, and I never paid any attention, but normally that's how they would do it. They would have somebody there that they'd meet with and then say, okay, because they had to monitor, well, let me go back. The Indian school had, when you got to be, 8th, 9th grade, you could learn a trade. You could learn how to be a welder, a cobbler. Yeah, that was popular back in the day. Repair shoes. And you could be a baker. And you could be somebody who managed, they had a big forest of apple trees and stuff to manage that, to do all the disking and the irrigation and all that kind of stuff, and other things pertaining to, I don't know, it was just a fruit or whether it was fruit and vegetables. But the women, they got to be domestics. They trained them how to be iron clothes, wash clothes, do floors, clean themselves so they was properly, because boys, who cares what boys look like? But later on, the girls, because what they did was I know quite a few from Klamath. They worked as domestics in San Francisco because there's rich people down there. And they'd go down and work in these homes and live in them. And they'd give them so much money for doing that after school, after they graduated from Indian school. Because there wasn't too many opportunities for Indians back in the day. They learned how to do, how to type and all that stuff too. But a lot of people didn't want to, unless you was someplace other than here. If you was down in the city, they'd allow you to, because there's all kinds of mixed nationalities down there. If you could do the job, they'd hire you. They didn't care. But up here, I hate to say this, but there was redneck. Well, I don't mind saying that, I guess. But they were really redneck up here. And
racist?
Yeah. And they didn't want to give that up. They could be the dumbest SOBs in the town. And, well, I'm a white guy. Well, it only goes so far. Most of us didn't pay attention to it because they were just, except when you went looking for a job. And you could be proficient in your education and your experience, but they wouldn't hire you. I had an aunt here that become a dental tech. Well, she was lucky. She got a couple of jobs, and I think she's the only Indian dental tech in the county. And there's other ones that had trained for it, but they had to go someplace else. Just like in anything else. Her sister was a bookkeeper.
I noticed that you like to, and I know I hear a lot of elders say Indian and refer to us as Indians. But the younger generation, my generation, we have a push. I like to use the word native. I use native for myself. People like to use the word indigenous. That's been adopted into the culture as well. And the big push is, well, we're not Indian. We're not from India. And it's a racist term that was used by the colonizers to call us something that we're not. So,
I'm Puli Claw from down Requa. Nobody calls me Puli Claw because nobody knows what the hell it means, downriver Indian. So in reality, I should be going by Puli Claw, not by indigenous people. That's the same thing. That's the white generated word. And so to me, it doesn't make any difference. Doesn't make any difference at all what you call me. Just like they used to say years ago, those old guys, just long as you don't call me late for dinner. That's what they'd say, yeah. You can call me anything you want, son of a bitch, whatever, but don't call me late for dinner. And so nobody ever calls me Puli Claw. That's what I am. I'm downriver.
Is that your village, or that's
no? That means I'm downriver. Okay, like this guy over here, they call him.
A Puli Claw, Pekala. He's our Ertner.
Well, the people on the other side of us, that live on the ocean side, and they call them something else, but that's what he was saying.
Up and down river people, basically, right? So along the river where you are. You say you're from Requa, which is at the mouth of the river.
Right, that's Puli Claw.
Puli Claw. And my people are from Pequan, which is all the way upriver.
Well, I don't know how far up it is. It's
20 miles.
Witchpeck, I guess.
20 miles, about 45 minutes from Witchpeck.
About 20 miles from the mouth.
But I know, but
20 miles from the mouth.
Yeah, so it's only 44 miles up there to Witchpeck. But I don't know what they call people in Witchpeck.
I always heard from about Pequan, Nautical area to the mouth, they were called Puli Claw, downriver. Anything past that going up was Pekala, upriver.
Pekala up is upriver, so we would have been Pekala and Pequan.
Let's see.
Pekala, upriver people.
See, there's some misconception. Because my people are from Witchpeck. My people are from in Crook. They're also from up there, up above Witchpeck.
Like near Happy Camp?
I
Where
got
like
some people in
the
Happy
Aubrey
Camp.
Ranch is?
Some people in
Me being Dylan Aubrey Ranch, that's where my people are on the Karuk side in the Happy Camp area.
well, no, I got people from both. My grandmother, my grandfather were from upriver. One was from Happy Camp, one wasn't. But that's where they resided for years. And then they out-migrated to Eureka, and they had a little restaurant in Eureka. My grandfather was a well-read man. I don't know, I didn't know him. He kind of become a reclusive, and he lived up, homesteaded on Forest Service land, and he hunted and trapped. And back in the day, after the war, they was looking for chrome, but it wasn't enough, wasn't high enough quality to make it feasible to go up the river, mine it, and go up the river, and then go down the highway, on 101. So they found it someplace else. But
So-
that's all he did was just gold mine, chrome mine, and hunt and trap.
So what was life like for the natives, the Klamath River people, before the colonizers came over this way?
Well, we was like most of them on the, from here to British Columbia, is that we relied on our fish primarily. What they call us a fishing tribe. All the different kinds of fishes that come up, eels and
Salmon.
like we never did suckers like they do up in Chiloquin and those places, but we did all the kind of salmon you can think about, all the kind of ocean fish you could think about. Now we never went out, and nobody's ever told me they went out and got a halibut. Where up here you can go out and get halibut because it's not that deep, but down there it's deeper. It's deeper and outside of the harbor, and well, it's not a harbor, outside of Klamath, Requa. And they like to feed on the bottom. So up here, you got 15 fathom deep. Fathom is 6 foot. So 6 foot times 15. See, that's pretty deep. So they made lines that went that deep up here, and all up and down the coast. Some of it's even shallower than that, and they fished a lot of halibut. But we got years ago we used to get abalone and mussels and clams and all kinds of little fishes that come in to spawn, perch, and fishes that stayed year round, capazone and little fish like that look like trout.
So we had villages all up along the river. What was the interaction of the villages, since we all lived separately, but did we have some type of at least communion?
Well, the only time they really got together was 2 times. Is that when they had big celebrations? Well, 3 times. Unless there's somebody that wasn't related, which is hard to do, and somebody from, we used to call them big houses, now they call them dance houses. But in the big houses, they would have a big celebration. And a lot of times, their other families would come in and assist. And usually the big house had a lot of surrounding families where they lived. But other people would come in, and they would bring whatever they brought, or, mostly regalia and stuff. But that was one of the big doings. And then they used to have stick games. And stick games were a big deal for, just like going to a football match now. This village has a better team of stick players than that team. So that's how you found out. Make a field someplace. And it wasn't like a field on
Stick ball, so stick games, that's like lacrosse now, basically, is what people
Well,
kind of, but it's invented by the natives, right? So we used to play that.
well, most of those, yeah, that was just a native game, and people would train, and a whole bunch of things going into training. You had your own place where you went to pray and to become a better stick player, and a lot of that went on because people they don't. Oh, I can be a stick player, but these guys they really worked at it. Plus, they had to do their other stuff. They had to fish if there's a fisherman, a hunter if there's a hunter, or if there was a boat builder. They had to do all that in between time. But they practiced their sticks, and a lot of them were young guys, so maybe they wasn't full ability. They didn't have a full ability to build a boat, but they was being trained by somebody, so they might have got a little more. I don't know. All I know is that what they used to tell me that you had an opportunity to rise your village higher than the one that she was playing against. Just like in brush dances, we used to have used to be competition. It wasn't just a competition, had nothing else. If people come down from Johnson's, well, they brought their whole dancers, singers, regalia, and Requa would do the same thing. Maybe it's in Requa, maybe it was up there. But what they would do is they'd compete. Who was the best dancer? Who was the best singer? It was just something that they did. Nobody got a prize or anything for it. Now you can go in there and they'll be dancing and singing. Every one of them, you'll see the same people dancing and singing. Well, that wasn't the way it used to be. And you can't tell these young people that. You can't even tell some of the old people that because they wasn't there. And we got some people here that could care less about being old when they was young. I mean, about knowing old things when they was young. Now they're up in the here. They don't know nothing. Well, if you ask them certain questions, they don't know nothing. But they're old. And I don't begrudge them for being old, or being, put on a pedestal. It's just that my wife could talk the language here. Well, she would have told them off.
So you come from a headman family, right?
Well,
So what makes a family a headman family? What would make a village a headman village?
Well, you could have more than one in the village, depending on how big the village is. I suppose Requa must have had more than one, because what amounts to is that the young ladies that you rear are trained. And part of their training is they can't go outside and go potty without a woman with them, in case somebody wants to
Case Bigfoot or Uma'a
take
comes.
advantage of them.
Oh.
No, take advantage of them.
Oh, no.
And they may be willing to, you don't know. But so they were closely watched. And I talked to the elders about that, and my daughter would never do that. Well, this is a new era. We got new traditions now. So they don't live like they used to live. And kids go to school, nobody watches them. Nobody watches them when they come home, so they can do whatever they want to do. So there's no...
So breeding is what you're saying, and that makes the headman and
well,
making sure the...
Let me get back to the headman. That's just only part of it. Now, what he does, he accumulates wealth. And the wealth is in either somebody that his people in that house, they call it a house, but there might be some sweat houses around it, might even be another house, but they're all from that family group. And they can make good regalia. They can make build boats. They're good hunters, because this is large. They're good fishermen. But all these people pray for that. They pray to do that. And how you find out you have a knack for it, then you have to really work on it. Because I know people that could do it, but they weren't good craftsmen, or whatever you want to call it, in making boats or regalia or baskets. So if I made a boat, build a boat, and we had enough boats, well, maybe this tribe up here, or maybe the tribe up Crookville would want to have a boat. So we'd trade it for something they had up there we wanted. And so they gave us more, maybe it was regalia we traded for them, or baskets or something, and something of value. And maybe it was just intaglium. But those people recognized that he's stockpiling a whole bunch of stuff over here with people and supplies. So he could put on a dance largely by himself if he wanted to, because he had the regalia and stuff, and he had good regalia makers, good basket weavers, good hunters, and because you needed all that stuff, but you need other people too to like go up the river and get certain kinds of wood for building around the dances and stuff like that, and so.
Outside of accumulating wealth and being able to be a good creator of, what type of leadership was expected of a headman?
Well, that all goes hand in hand. If the guy can sit down and figure all these things out and don't waste them, then they figure, well, he knows stuff. He knows how to do stuff. So more and more people go to him for a little, there's payment for everything. And you had to negotiate the payment. And maybe the payment was, and depending on if he was a rich man and I was a rich man, we might have to pay more than these two over here that weren't rich for the same offense. So everybody's negotiated. And then the negotiation would be, this guy did something wrong to me. And I says, well, I don't want to pay him that, because, or you have to pay me that. And I says, well, he doesn't want to pay it. He thinks it's too high. So we got to negotiate that until it's some agreeable to both sides. And that man that is doing the mediating, and he can take it from your side and my side and combine it so that we're both agreed to it to a certain extent. Where a normal guy, he can't do that. He can't sit there and say, boy, that's a toughie. I can't do that. But after a while, when that guy gets trading in that and these smaller confrontations, then he understands. It's kind of like a judge. A judge, he's not a judge until he's had enough experience being a judge, and pretty soon it becomes easier for him. Well, that's the way those old people were. Same way. It wasn't stupid. It was just that the way that their life was. So what they would do is they say, okay, the people would come to him and say, okay, we have a problem. And they'd explain it. So they'd go negotiate with the guy they had a problem with. And then he didn't always get satisfaction, but it seemed like he was in the mix, that you had, that he was being honored. And that's something that these people today now that say, well, they owe me that. Wait a minute now. We got to honor you and him when we're doing this. It isn't just because he might be a dirty son of a bitch, but he still deserves the honor because we brought it to the forefront. I give you an example. I don't know if you know where Wilson Creek is. Well, Wilson Creek is when you leave Klamath, and you start going up that hill, there's a creek right there that you go over. There's a bridge that goes over it, and it starts going up Last Chance. Well, there's two villages there. The same. One was Old Man. One was Old Man Haipur. And the one Haipur was the closest one to the mouth, up on the hill. And I don't know which one it was, but one of our people from Requa went over and killed one of their people. So they chased him home. When they chased him home, he was hollering when he come down the hill, because they went on the ocean trail, and instead of, like now it's a road, but you go up and go around on the ocean trail, and that means it's close to the ocean, because there's a high bluff on that side. And then you come down into where we live, Requa. And so he's hollering, hey, 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 just hollering like hell. They're chasing me. They're after me. So the women that was in camp, around the house, they come out. And those men were chasing him. They said, what's the matter? What's the matter? He killed one of our people. He's got to pay for it. And first thing the women said, they never said, are you guilty or anything? They said, we got to solve this in Indian law way, according to tradition. That means we have to negotiate if we can. So they did. They negotiated, and we had to pay them big bucks, whatever they asked for.
Even if it was good reason? Say he killed him for a reason?
Well, you got to remember, a long time ago, men were very important. Men were builders of boats, were hunters, fishermen, and protectors. Plus, they went and raided villages at times. They didn't raid any Talowa villages because they were ugly women up here. No, and so what they did was they had set a date. Might be next week, might be tomorrow, whatever it was. Get all the parties involved and say what happened. And they say, well, they got in a big argument. And both these people were important. The guy he kills is important to that village, and the guy, they can't do anything because he was important to this village, so we got to pay him. So we paid him. And then that guy's brother, he says, well, I don't like that. I don't think they paid enough. So he went off, and when he got a chance, he killed that guy that killed his brother. Mm. So they had to pay us back. So not only did they pay us back of the stuff that we gave them,
but they give you more.
Yeah, but one of the things that was really more was we had the right to all sea lion and whale and flippers of any animal that come in from the ocean like that. That was delicacy. So we got that. We still have it. And nothing was ever done after that. But see, they resolved it. And that just one little hot-headed guy made them lose their stuff.
Everything.
Yeah. And, but they still didn't want to kill the guy because he was important. Like this other guy was important. So they had to have a big enough payment so that it was felt down into their shoes, And so that was a way. They don't understand payment down my way. They think payment is something, oh, I can do this, I can do that. But years ago, I couldn't say your name when you was deceased. I could say your name, but not apply it to you. I could say it like it was maybe your kid's name. But I couldn't say, well, you remember when Joe Blow used to ride his motorcycle? I couldn't say that. I could say, well, look at him. He's riding a motorcycle. And his name was Joe Blow, your son. Mm. Well, now they glorify the name, which is a lot different than it used to be. And that's, I guess they always say, well, our language is a living thing, living document or something, and we're evolving. Well, we're evolving, but some things they don't want to keep the same because they don't know what the same is, so they make up new things. So we got some of these guys that make up all kinds of new traditions.
Like we say AWOC, whatever their name is if they've passed, right?
Yeah, because we never said that when we was kids.
And like AWOC Troy, who recently passed, who was a cultural
we never
leader.
said that. Now, we could have said AWOC, but we never said the name. Because then that was, we knew who he was talking about. They said at one time, and I don't know when it was, they said one time a year, you could talk to you about this Troy and use his
Troy
name.
Fletcher.
What's that?
Troy Fletcher, that's who I was referencing.
Yeah, but I mean, you could talk, I know Troy Fletcher, but you could talk about his, but you couldn't say Troy Fletcher rest of the year, just at one time. And I don't know if it's 1 week, 1 month, or whatever it was. But that's what they used to tell us. You can't be saying his name. So a lot of the people that passed on, I don't know how it was related. I know big relation, they used to tell me. That's your big relation. And well, how am I related? When I got older and all those older people had passed on, then they would tell me, because it was going to that new tradition type stuff. And oh no, that's your grandmother's first cousin. And,
isn't it important so you don't end up having a kid with someone who's your too close a relation, and now you got a special kid coming out?
Well, nobody ever told me that. What they told me was that like the Blakes down there, and I'll go back, the old people's committee says you can be 5 cousins away and it's okay after your 5th cousin, or maybe your 5th cousin. The Blakes, they believe forever and ever. If you're a relation down to 10th cousin, you can't be with that person. So depending on, and now what we want to do is we want to kind of make everything like, I call it storybook fashion, where it's easy to read, where different villages had different ways of looking at things. So it's like, I talked to a man in Navajo. I never talked Navajo. He's Navajo. And I asked him about the language, because there's 4 states of Navajos. And I says, do you have any relatives, far away from where you've come from? Yeah, he says. He says, it's quite a ways. He says, I says, do you have any problem communicating with them? He says, well, I have to think about how they enact things and what they say for things. So he said that that's the only thing. He says, so if I'm talking to them out of respect, I have to talk like them. I can't go to their village or, wherever they are and start talking the way I talk, because that's not showing respect. Well, these people down here, they don't know that kind of stuff, because these people here, the Talowa here, and up the river, they spoke different. And that's not very far.
I wanted to ask what you know about when the gold rush settlers came through and what they did to the native people.
Well, the native people retaliated down Klamath, so they put a fort down there. Turor, up the river a little ways.
An army fort?
Turor. Creek.
Mhm.
They built a fort up there. And I don't know how big it was or anything. All I know is that when I was a boy, they told me that this one guy, he did something. I don't know if he killed somebody or he robbed somebody, not Indians, and he took off. And my grandfather, Billy Brooks, was hired to track him down. So they caught him down Redwood Creek. That's down by Oric. He went over the mountain. And the soldiers, they went and tracked him down. They never tracked him down. My grandfather did. And they paid him $20, which is a lot of money back in when he did it, probably for the turn of the century, on 1800 yet. And because that was popular to get some money so you can go in a store and just lay your money down.
From what I know about the history, all I know is that they came up here looking for gold, just like many settlers did come to California, and they basically murdered a bunch of the natives up here and stole the land, and a lot of settlers are still up here.
Well, that's what they did. What they did was they come down from Crookville, because that's where all the gold was supposed to be, and that's where the creeks were coming down loaded with gold. Just we couldn't walk because gold would trip you and you'd fall in the river or in the creek. But so that they did a lot of that up there. And I never asked my grandmother. Some of those people wouldn't talk about it. My grandmother was raised up with her first cousin because her mother had died, and she never told me. It was her business. She never told me how she died. And when she's 6 years old, she moved in with her aunt, and her aunt had a daughter. I don't know how many other kids she had, but she had this one daughter that she was raised with my grandmother. And Daisy Jacob never spoke English. Could understand it, I think, but she wouldn't speak. And she worked in a logging camp as a cook, because they used to have logging camps where loggers would go and stay for whatever length of time they needed them, I guess. And then, because it didn't have cars and four-wheel drives and everything to drive back and forth to work and all that kind of stuff. So she lived in, she lived there too. And they said that she used to she could cuss in English, cuss those loggers out in their own language. But all her life, she never talked never talked English. She come down and with my grandma, fine basket maker, with my grandmother and sold baskets. I talked to one Indian lady down in Klamath. I recognized the basket. Not that I seen it before, but it was a real well-made basket. It was sitting on the shelf coming in her house. And I says, who made that basket? She says, you, I don't know. Your relation, she says. She come down here in 1950 with your grandmother selling baskets. $8 for a basket cap. $8. Because nobody was buying Indian stuff. Because everybody kind of says, we're out of that now. So nobody was dancing Indian dances. Nobody was buying regalia. Or one guy across the river, up from the old town of Klamath above Wakel Harry, he went and people pawned a lot of stuff to him. And he'd give them the money. And then years later, they want to buy it back. Well, tough luck. You're supposed to come back within a year or whatever it was. It wasn't a short period of time, it was a long period.
So it wasn't just the gold rush settlers, it was the logging company, the loggers too. They displaced a lot of the native. That particularly what I'm looking for is what kind of destruction did they cause?
Well, mostly the destruction I could see. I heard about all that stuff. I read that one book by that crook. I can't think of his name right now.
A lot of people listening probably haven't heard about it, and so
He was
yeah, I'd like
he
to.
was professor at Humboldt State, and he was from up there, and he wrote this book. And in the book, he wrote all the atrocities that occurred to these people, to our people, to his people up there, to the people down in Nicole, what's that? Eel River, and all those people in Humboldt Bay, and all these people that were clubbed and killed just for land. And but I couldn't read that one page at a time when he got into it, because it was so bad, but it was true. He did all the research, newspapers, et cetera, talked to people, and but newspapers reported it. Up here, they said they killed farmers, killed 78 people. Well, now this guy down here says, oh, it was 550 people. Well, the house wasn't this big, that dance house they had, where they was having the dance. And I'd like to see 550 people just sit in this bigger house or dance in it. So, the guy is Looney Tunes. And he wants to be, at one point he says, more people were killed up there than a Trail of Tears. Oh, shit. He just wants to be, he wants this tribe to be bigger. One time he says, well, this tribe was at one time the biggest tribe in California. Well, you can see that this wasn't the biggest tribe, period. Mm-hmm. Because no indication. Up the river, they had houses that were 10 by 10. Well, up in Washington, they had them 50 by 50. They had 5 families in one house. Well, they were big tribes up there. They got decimated, same way. I don't know if it's by the, disease primarily. And a lot of them were killed outright. But smallpox killed a lot of them. And then what do you call them? The girls that followed the soldiers, full of STDs, mostly clap and syphilis. And some of the Indians, I guess they made it up with those girls. Some Indian girls started doing it.
Oh, no.
And then they made it up with them.
Dang. So
and next thing you know, they were going blind, and they got all kinds of stories.
Colonizers brought prostitution to the tribes. That's crazy. Yeah. Dang. And, I didn't know the colonizers were pimping like that. That's crazy.
But see, that was you got to remember, though, is that I have a daughter. I'm not a rich man. And this guy comes in and said, well, I'll give you $50 for your daughter. Okay. Then he uses her as a prostitute. Because $50 for a poor man back in the day, that was big money. I can buy me a gun and, all that kind of stuff. And some white clothes. Some white clothes. Anyway, so I don't know what they use it for. But that was, in a way, it wasn't just one thing, of course, miners and stuff, they took liberties on the Indians because there was no law that would prosecute them. They said, well, that's just an Indian, so what? He killed my boy. So he's an Indian. He don't need to be prosecuted. He did a good, they thought it was a good thing for them to kill off the Indians, because in Crescent City here, and a lot of reservations that were around cities, they used to have a fire in the courthouse, throwing deeds in the fire, BIA deeds of land that was given. Maybe they were I know in Klamath they did that.
I saw a newspaper publication where in California they were giving $1,000 a head
Yeah.
for natives.
I don't know if it's that much or not, but I know that.
Yeah, and $1,000 is a lot.
Yeah, because they gave, and that was primarily promoted by, like, this area here. Like, this is worthless land for the farmers. So this was sold to the Bureau because the farmers wanted a lot of farmland.
Mm.
They had the rock here and another rock there, and it was in this close proximity. And then there's a road going through forever and ever, up here. So there's no land for a farm, really. And a lot of spray, a lot of sand dunes used to blow over. I don't know how far it blew over here, but, and Crescent City was the same way. A lot of sand blowing over. But you can't just say isolate one thing and say this is why the Indian tribes are decimated, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that you got to put together. And I can't think of that guy's name. God damn it.
It's all right. Well, we've been talking for a while out here, so as we're wrapping up this conversation, which has been amazing so far, what type of knowledge would you like to part with and give to the listeners?
Well, the part of it is I went to University of Oregon. I went to a couple of junior college. Here, junior college was easy. University of Oregon was tough. But that isn't my message. My message is that never stop learning, because you can learn anything that's around you. You can look at things and, well, I wonder how that works. You can learn about it. Where people, they got blindfolders on. Well, somebody made that, so I don't have to know anything about that. Well, maybe you want to make one like that. Maybe you want to improve on it. That's what inventors do all the time. They make an improvement, and then they get a patent on it, and then or else they want to do it. They want to learn about it. Maybe they want to be something. Maybe they want to mass produce them or whatever they want to do. They don't never get a chance if you just sit there with your hair buried in the sand and say, well, everything's been done. Because if inventors thought that, nothing new had been developed. And part of it is that there's nothing wrong with gaining knowledge. And even if you never use it, other than for yourself. Maybe you want to become a writer. Maybe it's going to help you in your art or some other way. Or maybe make you a better conversationalist. But so many of our young people, they quit learning as soon as they get out of high school. Well, I'm done. And then you talk to other ones. Well, yeah, I knew this one lady I went to junior high with. She quit in the 9th grade, got married. I met her about 20 years later in a meeting. I says, what are you doing now? She says, my kids are growing up. I'm going back to school. I'm going to be a teacher. I says, well, a little tough, isn't it? She said, I was always good in school, Indian lady. I says, well, so she had her eyes set for years on what she was going to do when her kids left home. And that's kind of what people don't do. Well, now I'm free to sit back and have a beer. Well, they're 40 years old or less, round about that way. So you might as well just keep on learning, even if it's just for your benefit. Even if it just makes you understand what you're reading easier. Doesn't make any difference. But people, they wrap themselves up in TV or gossip or listening to people that they follow. We got a lot of those Indians like that listen to people. Well, he knows quite a bit. I'm going to follow him around. You know, maybe not physically, but listen to his word. So education is not just books in school, but it's all around you. And I just kind of wish people would think like that.
That's an amazing message. It's kind of been the theme too. I've interviewed quite a few people, and so far I'm learning there's a lot of highly educated natives, and that's a great message that I want to keep passing on. I'm even going for my master's right now myself. So natives are educated. All right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Mel, for coming on Drum Circle News and having this conversation with me. I know the listeners appreciated your knowledge. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate coming up here, but it ruined a good day. I had some women coming over in my dreams.